What is going on, everybody out there? This is Jakejames Lugo. Welcome to the channel and welcome to this brand new episode of JJ's One Man Podcast. It's about that time again. We got a brand new episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi, episode 4, to talk about. So it's finally time to sit down and actually address a bunch of different things. I've been simmering on this episode since it went up on Wednesday earlier this week. I saw it during a watch party from Star Wars Theories channel. I almost like tongue twisted there. I watched his watch party while I had the episode playing for me here. I was watching that and I had his thing playing in the background. So I have a lot of thoughts about this episode, and I've been simmering on them for the last couple of days. I wanted people to actually see the episode and all that. And I also noticed a bunch of stuff within the Star Wars community, which I'm going to get to a little bit later. But let's talk about the episode first. This episode was not that great. This was a lackluster episode in comparison to the other 3 that we've gotten previously. And this is at the point where I even said it on Twitter that I think now we should all start to get worried for a couple different reasons. So a couple of the big things that happened this episode. So it was another chase that it took us over to the Fortress Inquisitorius. If you don't know what that is, if you haven't played the Jedi Fallen Order game, okay, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, stars Kyle Kestis. This is where the Inquisitors kind of congregate and where Vader goes and like orders them around and stuff. It's a big fortress that the Imperials have that's near Mustafar, and it's a big deal. Okay, and we're probably going to end up seeing it again in the Jedi Survivor game that comes out sometime down the line or later next year or whatnot. But we get to see it in live action here, which is very cool. I appreciate that. We also get a couple other neat little Easter eggs and other things in here that a lot of which I'm not too familiar with, but there is like cool stuff in there that people have pointed out in various different places. But we end up going over there. The reason being, before we even get to any of that stuff that happens there, is that Obi-Wan, after his fight with Vader, is being repaired in a bacta tank. We have this cool little montage and like, quick cutting between him and Vader in a bacta tank. And Obi-Wan is with this little kind of like, I guess you could say resistance cell, because they're not really the Rebel Alliance yet. This is still before that type of stuff comes together in Rogue One. And Obi-Wan is with the previous, it's the lady, the actress that was from Game of Thrones. I can't remember her character's name at the moment. I always keep forgetting it. But she ends up bringing Obi-Wan there to this kind of like cell. And this is where he meets O'Shea Jackson's character, which, again, I can't remember a lot of these characters' names because they're kind of forgettable. And what's weird about this one with O'Shea Jackson's character is that he made a big deal about it on social media. And a lot of people, myself included, were thinking that he was going to have a significant impact, like he might be playing Quinlan Vos. And clearly that's not the case. But one thing of interesting note that he does is that he calls Obi-Wan Kenobi General. So he knows about General Kenobi. And I think he even mentions that he was married or he was partnered up with another Jedi. And I'm totally cool with that. That seems fine, but it seems like he was kind of bigging it up a little bit more than what he needed to be, because he hardly does anything this episode. He ends up like arguing with Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan wants to go find Leia, which is understandable after what just happened. And he's like, you know what? We can't do this. We can't do this. 2 seconds later, okay, I will help you. And then we kind of just move on from there. So it was a little bit weird with the pacing, but they end up talking a little bit about the Fortress Inquisitorius. They end up deciding to go over there, both, Obi-Wan's partner and himself. And they have to kind of go there in a small unit without any other like backup because of how apparently this place is so heavily defended. Cut over to the fortress itself, and we see Reva, we see Leia, and Reva is trying to interrogate Leia. Now, here's the problem, well, one of the big problems, I should say, with this episode. This doesn't help, or at least for me personally, really connecting with and really kind of taking a liking towards Reva whatsoever. I know that they're trying very hard to make her very sympathetic, and I want to make it clear, all my criticisms here are nothing against the actress. Okay, Moses Ingram is apparently a really freaking good actress, and she's done a lot of other work that she does a lot of great stuff. I am not seeing it here with this character, straight up. And the thing is that the conversation that they have between her and young Leia just feels very dragged out, feels very like overextended, and there's just certain things about it that just kind of don't make any sense, because she's trying to get information out of her about this kind of like, Jedi path resistance cell, okay, which is pretty much an allegory for the Underground Railroad. And it's just, she's not really like getting anything from her because she's having this banter back and forth with Leia. She's trying to entice her to give her up info, but Leia really kind of doesn't know much about this other than what she's been told when she was with Obi-Wan at the first time that they met their little kind of like ally there. And on top of that, which is weird, It's just that Reva is using the Force to try to probe her mind, at least in different points, like when we keep cutting to them. And Leia's not really doing much about it. Granted, she is the daughter of Anakin Skywalker. She's one of his kids. And it's one of those things that it's just like, it's not really clearly conveyed why that is, or at least, done in a fashion that I feel like is believable and falls in line with canon. Because Leia never really displayed Force powers from like episode 4 up until episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. And it was kind of like, something that was unconscious, but she never really had a thing where she didn't do anything. Now, they kind of do this where it's like she's trying to probe her mind and she's just like looking at her like, what are you doing? Like, is this a staring contest? It's kind of stupid, which I get and I kind of like. But again, the whole series of events just kind of doesn't make sense. And I feel like things should have been adjusted to make it a little bit better. On top of that, what I do think is crazy is when it kind of takes a turn for the worst eventually, where Reva ends up like throwing her into like this torture device or this thing where I guess that they used on other Jedi that survived Order 66. And she's getting ready to kind of use this machine on her when a whole bunch of other stuff goes down. But anyway, I'm jumping all over the place here, so bear with me because I'm doing a lot of this from memory. We kind of jump back over, or at least, before all this stuff happens with them, go over to seeing Obi-Wan and his ally actually go over to the Fortress Inquisitores. They kind of sneak into there, and Obi-Wan sneaks over to the fortress the same way that Cal Kestis did in Jedi Fallen Order. He kind of goes underwater and actually enters the base like that. I will admit there is a couple scenes that, Obi-Wan is doing some cool stealth stuff, which is neat. I'm actually trying to look up, this other character's name, so that way I could just get it right here. But he does like a bunch of this stealth stuff, using the Force, trying to sneak around. I think that's pretty cool. A lot of people say it reminds them not only of Jedi Fallen Order, but also of, of the Jedi Knight games, Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy, which I could see, which I could understand. And I was like, you know what, that is kind of cool because, Obi-Wan, granted, he hasn't really gotten a lot of, field experience now at this point in time because he's been so like dormant for like many years. But it is cool to see him kind of like returning a little bit to form. Like he's not necessarily in his prime, but he hasn't really forgotten everything of what he used to do. And I like that. Now, I'm still trying to find this character's name so I could get to her. Whoops, kind of going to go in the wrong way here. But while all that is going on, Obi-Wan's ally actually sneaks on and she's like dressed up in her whole entire, Imperial uniform that we saw her in episode 3. And it's cool that, the idea of like, you're kind of like sneaking on there. You're kind of like, just lightly just going around and stuff. And that's cool. However, to be honest with you, okay, a lot of this ends up making the Rebel Alliance look really, really stupid. And I'm talking like incredibly stupid. We're talking like there's just certain things about them. That it's just like really weird. Okay, her name is Tia. That's who I was trying to remember. It's like, okay, it's was it Indira Varma? Okay, but she was in Game of Thrones. Okay, so Tia is dressed up like this, right? And she kind of like gets one up on like one of the Imperial like security guards there. That's also an officer. And she's like, I outrank you and all this stuff. And she gets inside, right? Pretty easily. It's a decent scene of banter, but like everything around this, okay, and what she does afterwards makes the Imperials and the Empire seem really dumb. Like just overall, just straight up dumb. Especially with Fortress Inquisitores supposed to be like so heavily guarded and such like an ironclad fortress. It just doesn't match up here. There's something off about this writing. So she goes in there, she starts looking around, and there's people literally around this woman looking at her do stuff. There's even an Imperial officer that kind of calls her out and brings her, to the back, and she just kind of like, knocks him out or like gets like a hold on him or puts a sleeper hold on him, and nobody else notices this. Like it's like a couple feet away, and it just looks really weird and awkward and stupid. I've seen a couple reviews of this where people are saying like, there's no way with so many people running around this entire fortress that nobody saw this or nobody noticed that this guy is just out cold. I mean, granted, you got to have stealth sections. You got to have a little bit of plot armor for your characters. But come on now. There's like a couple people in front of you next to these other consoles. You mean to tell me none of them noticed this? None of them cared to look and see like, yo, what the hell's going on over there? It's just weird to me. So we end up getting to a point where Obi-Wan ends up going to where Leia's being kept because Reva ends up going away. There's a distraction that's going on. That type of stuff is cool. we get this really awesome scene where a lot of people say it's very similar to The Force Unleashed, where Obi-Wan is doing like his stealth tactics, comes out and like pulls out his lightsaber, takes out these two stormtroopers. Very freaking cool. It is a little bit weird where we're not seeing the stormtroopers fire as much, even in the dark. It just felt like, again, they look a little stupid, but it is cool to see Obi-Wan doing his thing. So he gets, Leia. They end up kind of like trying to leave and stuff. Reva ends up talking to Tia at one point, and they have this little banter back and forth, and she's like, "Oh, you're lying," and she's like, "Well, I'm supposed to lie because I'm a spy. You know, I'm trying to infiltrate the rebels or the little kind of like cell that we're trying to snuff out," which makes sense, but it is, again, a lot of weird logic, and it just makes, again, Reva and the rest of the Empire seem a little bit kind of like stupid. That's the best way I could put it. And I know that Reva's not supposed to be a stupid character. She's one of the Inquisitors. But it's like one of these things is like, okay, come on now. Like, we're really stretching the bounds of suspension of disbelief here. But a bunch of stuff ends up going down. Obi-Wan gets into a firefight / lightsaber. It's a blaster fight while trying to get Leia out of there. There's a whole bunch of things going on, right? He gets spotted by one of those seeker droids, and the whole base is pretty much alerted to their presence. This is one of the things now, okay, at this point, as things are starting to go down, that a lot of people seem to have a big problem with, and I do too, because it shows a lot of like the mishandling of a lot of things with this episode specifically. Tia ends up just getting into a little scuffle with these two stormtroopers, and she knocks out one of the stormtroopers by just smacking him in the head. And it's like, what? I was saying this on TikTok when I did my initial reactions. It's like, listen, how are you going to tell me that this woman didn't grab one of the blasters and just fire at the two of them? She just open hand smacked one of the stormtroopers and knocked him out. And the other one's just like all staggered, like, oh, like, I don't know what to do. It's like, come on now. You're the freaking Empire. You're stormtroopers. You got to get them to look a little bit more vicious and intimidating and more of a threat than that. That to me was just bad choreography. And I see a lot of people giving excuses to this. And I'm like, are you guys looking at the same show I'm looking at? Are you looking at the same scene that I'm seeing right now? Like, this is just weird. Like, to me, that was not good. And I saw a couple other reviews saying the same thing. You know, it's just one of these things where I feel like a lot of Star Wars fans, especially a lot of Star Wars fans on TikTok specifically, have been trying to give a lot of reasons to excuse a lot of things like this. And it's not good. This whole section, this whole little scuffle, perfect example of like what not to do. But then that's just the tip of the iceberg with this episode, right? So we keep going. Eventually, Obi-Wan gets into this crazy firefight. He's trying to kind of, help Tia and help Leia get away. There's this whole like hallway section where Obi-Wan's getting fired on from both sides. He's using his lightsaber, using the Force a little bit. And it comes to this point where he has to block off, I think, like this little crack in the window where there's a bunch of like water that's about to come in, and use the Force to hold it back before he could actually escape, and use the water to drown all the troopers there. Just the way that this was handled, even though it's a neat idea, just the execution of events, I thought was poor. I felt like it looked a little bit weird. Cal Kestis apparently did the same exact thing from that section or that last level or stage from Jedi Fallen Order, which I don't mind. But again, I feel like what they did in Jedi Fallen Order was a little bit better handled. It just looked a lot cooler than what we got here. Now, the other stupid thing in this episode, another stupid thing that people seem to be excusing, is this little section where Leia is in this giant trench coat with Obi-Wan that he's wearing, and she's like hiding in the trench coat, and they're just like openly just walking away while this whole open hangar of different stormtroopers and Imperial officers are just running around. Nobody notices this. Nobody notices this random dude with a beard, by the way, while everybody's clean shaven. This dude with a beard is just walking around with this giant trench coat, and he looks a little too big. And this other random Imperial officer nobody's seen before. Come on. Like, this is one of those poorly thought out ideas that could have been executed so much better. You know what would have been a better alternative to this that I've seen nobody say on social media? Why didn't they get like a droid or like one of those like boxes or crates that we see in Star Wars all the time and put Leia inside of it, and then have Obi-Wan wearing the cloak or whatever, the Imperial outfit, along with Tia, and then just push the crate around and say like, they're trying to get over to a transport or trying to get over to one of the ships nearby. That is such a better idea. I just thought of on the fly after seeing the episode than what we got here. It makes it seem a little bit more mature and make more sense than this kind of like really comedic or like Saturday morning cartoon version of an escape. It just looks weird. It felt out of place with Obi-Wan Kenobi. I don't know who made the decision there, whether it was Deborah Chow, whether it was the writer of this episode. It was just bad. Straight up bad. And anybody giving an excuse to that, I feel like is being a little delusional. Now, here's the other thing too. After all that, right? while they're running away and stuff, until finally Reva shows up and she's like, traitor. And, and they try to point out like where these people are at. They're trying to get away, or they're about to get blown up between all the Imperials looking at them, and then 2 air speeders or 2 snow speeders show up behind and start blasting the Imperials. Now, here's the problem that I have with this, and I think I've seen a couple other people mention this section in particular. Number one, how did the air speeders get over there? Because I don't remember another ship that they were on, because as far as I know, and I had to look this up on Wikipedia, air speeders or snow speeders don't have a hyperdrive. They don't have light speed capabilities, as far as I know. Could be wrong. I could have missed something else in the episode where maybe I turned away or whatever, but I didn't see any other ship that those air speeders or snow speeders were there. Number two, there's TIE fighters in this hangar. You mean to tell me that nobody there that was getting shot at, or any of the people that were lurking around, were going to grab any of the TIE fighters and go after these air speeders? Are we serious right now? Like, you literally see them in the beginning of the episode. They're there. They're hanging. Like, they're just there. Where the hell are the TIE fighter pilots? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like little decisions like that are weird. And even though it didn't bother me too much, we see Reva deflecting a lot of the blaster fire from the snow speeders or the air speeders that are shooting at them to give covering fire to Obi-Wan, Tia, and Leia there, which didn't bother me too much because, again, she's an Inquisitor. She should be able to block like blaster fire with the Force or with her lightsaber. It's arguable that because that is a starship, it's a lot more powerful than a standard blaster. And if you really want to maintain the believability of the universe, I think that she should have been better off like finding cover rather than just deflecting all this blaster fire for no reason. Like, I get that argument. It could go either way and stuff. But anyway, things go crazy. They're getting away in the air speeders or the snow speeders. One of the guys ends up getting killed that was trying to help Obi-Wan and Tia. And they give like this big moment for them. Like, this is just some character that we haven't really seen, or I don't think we even see in like earlier parts of the episode, that just gets killed. And I think his name was Wade, I believe. I'm pretty sure that people that I saw reviewing this episode forgot the guy's name. And like, the episode makes you want to feel real, like, sad and bad about it. It's like, who the hell was this guy? He literally, we have all these other like troopers on both the Rebel Alliance and also the Imperials that just get squashed out immediately, and we don't care about them. It's like, who the heck was Wade? Like, what did Wade do that was so important that we have to take like a couple minutes to feel real bad for him just getting shot down? Or not even getting shot down, I should say. Freaking one of the Inquisitors throws a cargo thing at him and takes out the speeder. By the way, from like a ridiculous distance. It just, again, it didn't make any sense. It was so weird and stupid. Now, the other thing too that I think is very valid to bring up with this episode towards the end with Darth Vader, because Darth Vader shows up. He's pissed off. He's got problems. He's got beef with everybody in the room right now. We all know when we have a pissed off Darth Vader, somebody's getting their throat snapped. Okay. He shows up, starts choking out Reva. He's like, listen, I told you the price of what failure would bring and stuff. And she's like, hold up, I let them get away. And this is the problem that a lot of people have. In that situation, if we're staying true to the character of Darth Vader would not let her live. He would snap the neck of anybody else, plain and simple. For whatever reason, they're trying to make this impression that Reva is super important enough for Darth Vader to give pause. And I totally get and I sympathize a lot with many people who are criticizing this episode and saying, listen, this is something out of character for Darth Vader, straight up. Because I feel like they're right. Because we've seen in the original trilogy, we've seen in other renditions of Star Wars, that Darth Vader is a very unforgiving character. And already, we've seen earlier in this series that Darth Vader even told Reva, listen, if you mess up, it's your ass. Straight up. It's a wrap for you. We've seen him say this like in episode 3, literally the previous episode at the beginning of it. So for him to kind of just like give pause and give her another chance in order for her to come out and say there was a tracker on there, I feel like, again, was out of character. I'm in agreement with a lot of other people saying that. There's others that I've said that, or I've seen on TikTok that have been, again, giving reasons and kind of like, trying to justify this type of action. And while I get where they're coming from, but I still don't feel that it's in line with Vader's character and who he is, even at this point in time for the Star Wars canon. So anyway, he lets her live. Reva says that she put a tracker on them, which is Leia's droid. She actually grabbed Leia's droid and held onto it for a bit when she was interrogating Princess Leia. And we see that at the very end of the episode. We see like this really heartwarming moment where Obi-Wan and Leia just look at each other. She holds his hand and stuff. And then we see the droid itself that turns red with the actual light. And that ends up showing that has the bug on there. And that's how the episode ends. So overall, man, this episode was a mess. It had some neat nuggets and cool ideas and cool moments that were very short-lived, but the majority of this episode was not good. And I feel like this is probably the worst episode of Obi-Wan to date. Say what you want about the previous 3 episodes. I actually liked them more than most other people, but this one was definitely a dud. Now, quickly, I want to speak on a couple other things I saw with the Star Wars community that's in relation to this episode that I think is valid, because normally I wouldn't talk about this in this case. I would talk about it on TikTok and stuff, but I want to mention it here because I think it goes hand in hand. I'm seeing a lot of like discourse within the Star Wars community for people that are trying to either like or dislike this series for many different reasons, but the majority of them are coming from a very ill-informed and a very kind of, ignorant place. I'm not talking about the stuff that's being done or was done towards Moses Ingram. I've already spoken on that and I've already said my piece on it. I feel like a lot of people that were pointing that stuff out, or at least that were sending that stuff over to her, were pretty bad. Like that thing has no place in Star Wars. But I also, at the same time, I see this for people that are really trying to dogpile on and really criticize and really kind of, really eviscerate, the character of people just because they disagree with them about different aspects of this series. Specifically this episode, I saw a bunch of TikTok creators that are Star Wars TikTok creators that are criticizing Star Wars theory's reaction, because I was actually, again, I had his watch party in the background playing while I was watching the episode, and I saw the whole conversation, which was like a 3-hour live stream of him reacting to the episode, like giving his immediate thoughts and stuff. So I saw the whole context and the whole conversation of it, and I'm seeing people take little clips of that and try to give off this impression of this guy that is 100% not true, and giving off this like opinion about him, which I think is very unfair. And I think it's unjustified, because I saw, was it Booba Fett? I think it's J Stubbs or a whole bunch of other content creators that were on TikTok that do Star Wars content, really just kind of like saying things about this guy that were just completely out of left fields. Like they're saying like he's a bad dude, that he's toxic and all this stuff. And they were pointing to specific things pulled from this live stream or this watch party of stuff that he was saying about this episode, saying that he was entitled, that he was trying to speak for the entire Star Wars community. And I'm sorry, that's not true. That's 100% not true. And I could totally see and totally get that all those creators on TikTok and other places that were saying this stuff did not watch that watch party. They did not see the full stream. They did not see the full context of what he was saying. And they were really coming from a place of being ill-informed. And I think that's wrong. And I think that's messed up. And I think that's a real problem with the discourse of this show. Because let's be real, and I've said this a couple times already as we've been doing the reactions and the conversations about this series, for the last couple episodes, you're allowed to dislike different aspects of this show. You're allowed to criticize it. You're allowed to feel the way that you feel. Obviously, we all are in agreement that some of the crazy stuff that Moses Ingram got and a couple other things that were put out there, not cool, not allowed in the Star Wars fandom. Nobody wants to see that stuff. But to come out and say that someone is toxic because they are giving their criticism or giving their overall thoughts about a show that they're not feeling right now, especially after this episode, I think is just as bad. And I think people really need to check themselves and really take a step back and really look at how they're contributing to the discourse overall, as opposed to trying to character assassinate other people, because I think that's wrong and I think that's not cool. So either way, I know this was a longer episode than normal. Hopefully you guys got a good amount of food for thought for this episode. I want to keep the conversation going. Leave me a comment down below in the comment section with your own thoughts, with your own impressions of the episode, or any of the stuff that I mentioned on here after the whole episode discussion. Put all that stuff down below in the comment section. Make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel for more episodes and more videos like this, because we're going to be doing more conversations about this for episode 5 and 6 when eventually that happens, especially the finale, which, again, episode 5 is going to be a real big deal for a lot of people, because this might make or break this show, and then same thing with the actual finale. And don't forget, too, I also have my game reviews that you guys could check out now. I just put up a couple days ago my review of Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles for the PlayStation. It's live now. Go check it out. I had a lot to say about that game. You guys know I love Star Wars games, but every once in a while, we get those few that I have to speak on that are very interesting and unique, for lack of a better phrase. I'll let you watch the episode or watch the video so that way you guys can see what I'm talking about. But anyway, thank you again for checking out this video, and I will see you guys again very soon. Peace out, and stay epic, everybody.